almost 2.5 years since I picked up the Galaxy Z Fold 4, and one of the questions I've always had with foldables is durability. How long could you realistically keep your foldable phone? Will the folding display have issues? Will the hinge begin to develop problems? And really, in the end, how long would a foldable phone actually last you? Well, I hope to answer those questions in this video. This is my long-term review of the Galaxy Z Fold 4. Let's start off with the most important part of a foldable phone, and that's the internal display. So how has this large internal foldable display held up over the last 2+ years? Well, as you can see, not very well. There's some dead pixels at the top center of this display. It started off with just one dead pixel, and now it started to spread to more and more, and now it's a larger area right in the center of that display. Now the good news, it's kind of stayed this size that you're currently seeing on the screen. It hasn't continued to get larger, but it's still a pain to have that large black dot right in the middle of your display. I'm also starting to experience some issues with the actual touch of this display as well. It's kind of off and on. It doesn't always register my touches as I'm using that larger internal display. I start to click something and nothing happens. But like I said, it's really off and on, and most of the time it works fine. But it's just those certain times that nothing is happening. But that's just my experience so far, and I thought I'd mention that in this video. But now going back to those dead pixels on the internal display, I've checked online and it looks to be an issue specifically with the hinge of the Z Fold 4. Others that have this phone have also experienced the same thing, and it seems like because of this hinge technology, it puts a lot of stress underneath the display and it causes some problems afterwards, like dead pixels. At least that's what I'm reading. And my device is no longer covered under warranty, and I was dumb enough to not get insurance on this phone. And I think that's the key with really any foldable. Get insurance. This technology is still relatively new and the parts are so expensive, and you don't want to pay out of pocket for a replacement screen, especially when it wasn't your fault. I didn't drop this phone or cause any issues with that display. It just showed up one day and it started to get larger and larger. Now, most of the time, things like this are covered under warranty, but once that warranty is up, like mine, you're kind of left all alone. So while insurance might even be good for a regular slab phone, I think it's a necessity with something like a foldable. Now, I wouldn't say that this is what you should expect with every single folding phone. Samsung is constantly improving their designs with each new release, with each new update, and durability is getting better and better, but it's something that you should definitely keep in mind with smartphones that are delicate like the Z Fold 4. These are really expensive phones, and there's a lot of moving parts that can go wrong on this phone. But now let's talk performance, because surprisingly this phone has done a nice job at staying snappy and quick. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 processor inside has held up really well, and this phone still, I would say, performs good. Battery life, on the other hand, is not very good. It has a relatively small 4,400 milliamp hour battery compared to other flagships today, and now 2.5 years later, the battery, of course, doesn't have the same capacity, the same efficiency. It started to degrade a little bit, so battery life is even worse. Having that 4,400 milliamp hour battery inside of a phone with this display size is kind of a shame, and now almost 3 years later, that battery life is really taking a hit. I can't get through a full day without having to charge this device with heavy usage. Now, I'm still running Android 14 with One UI 6 on this device, but the Z Fold 4 should be getting One UI 7. It's rumored to be coming sometime in March. So you're still going to be getting the latest software update, which is always nice. I'm actually really happy that Samsung has kept up its promise on software updates. And having a 3-year-old Android phone isn't as much of a disappointment when it comes to software as it used to be. But now let's talk about the hinge. It's noticeably not as precise as it used to be. It opens and closes fine, but you can tell that there's some uses on it. It's just not as smooth as it once was. It's hard to explain, but it just doesn't snap open like it used to. And that's normal. This is a used phone and the hinge has been used multiple times, and that's what's going to happen. So I don't really blame Samsung for that, but it's just something that you notice with a foldable because other phones don't have moving parts like a hinge that make it feel just not as precise or not as new as it once was. I've even dropped this phone a few times, so there's some scratches and nicks on the hinge. Everything works fine. There's no problems with the hinge. It's just something that I thought I'd mention. Now, one of my complaints, and this is nothing new, I mentioned this on my original review, is the outer display. Now, I'm mentioning it again because now, having used this phone for 2.5 years, that outer display has gotten more and more annoying. I don't really like the aspect ratio, the thinner, taller aspect ratio of this outer display. I would prefer something like a regular phone on the outside to be able to do most of my work and then open up to that larger display when I need it. That's how I use a foldable. Most of my time is spent on that outer display, and this outer display just doesn't feel right. It's not a pleasure to use most of the time. It's not a big deal. It's something that was present from the beginning, and it's just gotten more annoying as the years have gone on. But now let's talk camera. There's not much to say here because that was never really a selling point for the Z Fold 4, and it's still not for any Z Fold phone. You're not going to get the best camera experience on a foldable. That's just something that you could expect going into purchasing one. But I will say it's still a decent camera. It just doesn't have the quality or the features that other flagships have today. And it's kind of fallen even more behind as the years have gone on because we're seeing other flagships add better camera hardware and more AI features that really take that camera experience to the next level. This one really doesn't have it. It'll get the job done. You should be pretty much happy with what you're getting. Just don't expect some amazing results. You can get more details on the camera experience in my original review. I'll make sure to link it to this video as well. So in the end, how has my long-term experience been with the Z Fold 4? Well, it's been a little frustrating just because of the durability. I love foldables. In fact, I think foldables are the most interesting smartphones available right now, but the display issues, the durability, it just causes some frustration. You want to be able to have these smartphones for at least 3+ years without having any problems, especially with the display. And the internal display is a whole point of a foldable. And when that can't even last 2 years, well, then that's causing some issues. I've had other problems with my Pixel Fold, for example. It also had display issues. So I think this is something that you're going to experience with any foldable, or something that you should expect. Maybe you won't have problems the first 2 years, but as time goes on, that phone is not going to last forever. And after a while, the warranty is not going to be covering those displays. And even if you have insurance, it's still kind of a hassle because you're going to have to still send in the phone. You might be without a smartphone for a while and then still have to pay the deductible when it comes to insurance as well. It's just something to keep in mind. It's just frustrating having to deal with problems on your phone that weren't caused by user damage or anything like that. It just happened because that's just how these phones are. Would I recommend buying a foldable going forward? I still would, because like I said before, they're the most interesting smartphones coming out right now. I'm kind of bored of the regular slap phones, and these are giving me something better. But there's some things to keep in mind before you buy a foldable, and I'm actually going to make a video on that. I'm going to give you 2 things to think about before you buy a foldable, and I'll make sure to link that to this video. But what do you guys think? How has your experience been, maybe with a Z Fold 4 or with another foldable? Let me know with a comment down below. Maybe you haven't experienced the same issues that I've experienced. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos just like this one on tech news, reviews, and opinions, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new videos, and I'll see you on the next one.